If you're not already subscribed to this YouTube channel, go ahead and hit the subscribe button now, along with the bell icon so you can be notified whenever a new video is posted. And if you're already subscribed, check and make sure that YouTube hasn't unsubscribed you. And of course, be sure to give the video a like, as well as share it on your social media. The white supremacists hate that. Now, that said, in 2016, the black grassroots started making the streets hot for the thugs in blue, really putting the heat on the bastards. And as a result, the police getting caught time after time, breaking the law, murdering black people in cold blood, the public outrage against them growing, the cops were determined that they were going to try to fabricate some good old-fashioned Copaganda in order to try to see if they could score some PR wins with the help of the white media, who at that point was not yet on the defensive, though the bastards soon would be. In this case, I've highlighted a particularly reprehensible incident that happened in Birmingham. You had a baby whose parents had overdosed on drugs, and the Birmingham PD, showing that they're actually nothing more than a street gang that the taxpayers are forced to support, they decided this would be a good opportunity for some Copaganda. So what happened was you had one of the thugs in blue named Michelle Burton. She decided to pose for a staged photo taken by some of her fellow thugs, and they immediately went to Facebook to post it. And no less than Michelle Burton's husband decided that he would post this online. He didn't give a damn about the children. Instead, it was all about how great his wife is and how great the fellow thugs in blue are. That's the only thing this was about. This was an ad for the police. Support your local thugs in blue. See, the white media have been covering for all the murders that the police have been carrying out. The white media had been giving the police all the positive ink they could, but it just wasn't working. The public wasn't being fooled, and killing after killing was making it where all of the pro-propaganda the white media was pumping out simply wasn't taking. The public was saying, no, you got to punish these bastards regardless. So the police were trying to figure out, how do we fabricate and manufacture some good ink for ourselves? I know. We'll wait until the first time that we got a black baby that we can snatch from their parents, and we'll make sure that there's a cop, preferably a white one. In fact, make sure it's a white female. We'll go ahead and have one of them cradling the baby in their clutches. And we'll try to say, why, see, we're not just killing black people at random. Why, these niggers, they need us, don't you know? So in 2016, when the Birmingham PD pulled this stunt, and the husband of the thug in question shown in this picture posted it on Facebook, I had to put up the censors bar. This guy actually pulled this stunt, and next thing you know, just to make sure that there were no doubts whatsoever that this was supposed to be Copaganda meant to be proliferated in the media, this Brian Burton character, he reached out to a local reporter on Facebook and told her, quote, "Can you help get this story out?" Now, this guy doesn't even say a word about the babies. Doesn't say a word about the children, nothing about them whatsoever. He shows that this is exactly what this is about. Can you help get this story out? He falsely claims his wife would never broadcast what she does at work. Yeah, that's the reason why she decided to pose for a stage picture. Because she would never broadcast what she does. And by the way, when the local media picked up this story that had been handed to them that they agreed to help spread, she had no problem getting in front of the cameras. So yeah, she did broadcast what she does at work, which is violate black people's rights, molest and abuse black babies. She proudly was broadcasting that. People need to see the positive things police officers do every day. Well, the reason people don't see anything positive the police are doing is because the bastards don't do anything positive. The problem isn't that the public don't see it, is that the cops aren't doing anything positive. That's the reality. So you see exactly what happened here. And of course, what happened is the white media picked it up, ran with it first chance they got, didn't need much prodding. And this Brian Burton bastard, he was all over this one, man. He just pushing this hard as he can. This is the kind of police story people need to hear. This guy was just campaigning hard as hell, and the white media didn't need much prodding at all. No less than the Washington Post decided to pick up this garbage and run with it. They didn't even bother to report that the family was mad as hell about this, that the baby was being exploited, as the family said. This is all about, let's get the lie out there as quickly as possible, and by the time people find out the truth, well, the lie will have already been repeated a million times. But oh, how things have changed in the last 4 years. 4 years ago, I was the only person pointing out, look, this particular story, because this was a stick in my craw that the police would be doing this garbage. I was beyond furious when I saw this. And I told you then, there's black people, we better make sure we respond and respond forcefully to stuff like this. See, other cultures understand that when you have their oppressors snatching the children and trying to use the children as props for PR propaganda to say, oh, why, we're not wiping these people out. Why, look at how we're playing nicely with their babies after all. They understand how dangerous that is. I told you, it was not some victimless crime to let this crap happen. That was 4 years ago, and the white media eagerly helping to push the police line on that one. And here we are, in 2020, the police are trying the same thing after they murdered that brother in Philadelphia, gunned him down in the streets, because apparently the police in Philly, you know, they got tons of money for armored personnel carriers, tons of money for military-grade equipment, but apparently there's just not enough money in the thugs' budget for stun guns, right? Yeah, that's because they want to make it very clear. They want to set the stage that, oh, we can just gun black people down and claim, well, we didn't have, you can't say that we should have stun gunned them. We don't have any stun guns. Yeah, because you can't afford it, right? You can afford military-grade weaponry and vehicles. You just can't afford non-lethal implements. Yeah, right. So this week, what happened was you had a woman, Rakia Young. She was driving to meet one of her family members, and next thing you know, she's set upon by a gang of thugs in blue in Philadelphia who apparently are looking for the first unprotected black person that they can come across. They see this black woman with her children in their SUV. Now, she doesn't run them down. She would have been justified in taking any action that she had to defend herself. Instead, the police set upon her. They break all the windows in her SUV, yank her and her teenage passenger out of the car, beat them just unmercifully. Then what happens is they snatch the baby out, hurting the baby in the process. They even hit the baby in the head, by the way. And next thing you know, one of the cops who's on the scene of this crime takes out his cell phone camera and takes a picture of a officer, female, white, of course. It can't be a black woman, and damn sure can't be a black man. They make sure, oh, we got to make sure this is a white person. This is the police making it clear. They are a white supremacist street gang. The police leaving no doubt, only the densest of people would deny it. They are a white supremacist street gang, full stop. So here they are with the mother of this baby on the ground, bloodied, being beaten by a bunch of white thugs with badges. And you got another member of the thug gang who snatches this child while one of her fellow accomplices, one of her cohorts, calls themselves taking a picture of this baby. And then the Fraternal Order of Police on their Facebook page, they don't even wait. They don't even wait to see, gee, just make sure we got our ducks in a row so that we don't have this bite. It's like, oh, forget about it. Go ahead and post this online. The child was lost during the violent riots in Philadelphia, wandering around barefoot in an area that was experiencing complete lawlessness. They were on the scene right there beside the SUV where the cops were busy beating this baby's mother bloody. I'm not going to show you the pictures of Rakia Young's injuries. And I'm not going to show the video of the thugs in blue bashing out all the windows of her car, dragging her and her teenage passenger out and beating them. I'm not going to show you the video. You can see that for yourself, though I don't know why you'd want to, but I'm not going to show you any of that. This child was less than a few feet away from her, his mother being beaten by these very thugs who have him in their clutches. And then the police have the nerve, the unmitigated gall to post on their Facebook page, "We are not your enemy. We are the thin blue line, and we are the only thing standing between order and anarchy." You know, Rakia Young is a law-abiding citizen. The thugs who assaulted her are not. They are the ones causing disorder and anarchy. They are the cause of it. They are not standing between the public and anarchy. They are standing between the public and justice. They are the thin blue lie. After they assaulted Rakia Young and used and abused and exploited her son for a Copaganda photo, they left the child sitting in glass, broken glass. And this was for hours. This kid wasn't just sitting in broken glass for a minute, for hours. They sat there, didn't give a damn. The kid had to be rescued by his grandmother when she came on the scene. And Rakia Young, they still have not given her back her car, by the way. Car's been impounded, and it's a matter of she's got a lawyer now, and the lawyer's online making it clear, hey, look what the hell the thugs in blue did. The white media was all ready to run with this. Oh, the white media was they were too eager to run with this. That is, until the truth came out. Now the white media's going, we asked the Fraternal Order of Police for a comment. They said nothing, so we're going to move on now. That's what the white media is trying to do. They're trying to bury this because the cops have been caught yet again. And family, this is the reason why you need to be knowing about these events when this stuff happens. What happened in Birmingham, I told you, it was that kind of thing is not some victimless crime. You saw what they did to Dante Hart and his siblings. They used that child for a Copaganda photo in Ferguson. And then the two lesbian white supremacists who were abusing Dante and his siblings ran them off a doggone hillside and killed all of them. These white supremacists, they absolutely hate black people and they hate black babies with a passion because as far as they're concerned, this child is in their most vulnerable state. This is the best time to kill one of them. The police they kill black children. Tamir Rice, Ayanna Jones, Charlena Lyles was pregnant when the thugs in blue murdered her. But the fact that the Fraternal Order of Police did this, it's obvious. They are a white supremacist street gang. They know exactly what happened, the circumstances under which this Copaganda photo was taken. To them, it was a joke. They figured because they got away with it in 2016, it'd be easy to get away with it now. But it turned out, nope, you're not getting away with this one. Now they bought themselves more trouble. But you have your black police chief in Philadelphia. She's claiming that she's heard about the story and that one of the cops who assaulted Rakia Young has been placed on administrative leave. Now, she didn't say anything about attacking Rakia Young. Instead, your mammy police chief was talking about the vehicle, one of the officers who was seen striking the vehicle.
We've identified the officer responsible, the one that we see using the strikes against the car, and that officer has since been placed on restricted duty pending the outcome of the investigation.
She was talking about the vehicle. She didn't say anything about assaulting Rakia Young, didn't say anything about exploiting this young baby for the Copaganda. Nobody's talking about laws in regards to protecting black children, and this is a black police chief doing this mess. This is not a matter of these are the depths that the thugs in blue are willing to stoop to. This is where they've always been. This is what they always do. This stuff is planned out. This goes beyond cynical. This is just sick. This is the evil that we're up against. How the hell do you reform this? You got some white supremacist thugs who assault a young mother and a teenager and even a baby. And then at the very moment that they're beating the mother to a doggone bloody pulp, they decide, oh, let's take a picture of the child too. And then we're going to pass it on to the Fraternal Order of Punks. And they're going to say, we're rescuing black children. Why, this black children was found lost in the streets. Why, this kid was just out there. Why, those black folks, they don't give a damn about any black babies. And why, the kid was wandering barefoot in the street. While all of this lawlessness was going on, and why we're the only thing standing between order and anarchy. Now, after the thugs in blue got caught In their lie, all of a sudden their little Facebook tweet disappeared, and the same thugs who were so happy to talk to the media, and you need to be showing stuff like this. Why, this is what we do, you know. All of a sudden they didn't want to talk to anybody. Radio silence. The Fraternal Order of Police learned to shut their mouths, and by the way, they're not the only ones. Now, Michelle Burton's husband, his little Facebook post, you can't find it now. It's gone now. All of a sudden that's gone. I'm not sure if his profile is even there. But if you go to try to find that story online, all of a sudden you find that Mr. Burton's Facebook posts have disappeared. Brian Burton's become shy all of a sudden. The post has been removed. Gone. Yeah, you call these bastards out and what happens is they scatter like cockroaches. But this is not a victimless crime. When they are able to use black babies and snatch black children and use them for their Copaganda, that is abuse, full stop. And there is something wrong with the people who allow their children, their babies, to be abused and exploited by their oppressors. When the enforcement arm of white supremacy is gunning down black men, beating black women, and exploiting black babies, there's something wrong with the people who apparently don't seem to mind, or who give a lukewarm response to that and there are people in my Twitter feed who are apparently thinking that there's going to be some white man descending from the heavens who's going to do something about it. They're waiting to see if one of their sky gods is going to do something about it. That's what they're doing. They're waiting around to see if maybe some white man on a white horse will come down from a white heaven and wave a white wand and get these white supremacists to stop all this anti-black violence. If you truly do believe that there is some God who's watching these events, then you also must believe that he gave you a working brain, 2 arms, 2 legs, and hopefully some guts. So instead of sitting back talking in the third person about what you hope that perhaps some deity from on high is going to do, it never occurs to any black person that perhaps what your deity did was to create you. Maybe that was your deity's response to white supremacy, to put you into the mix, to put you in the picture. But that presupposes courage. Courage and integrity on your part. Courage is what's called for here. When the white supremacist thugs are on a rampage in the streets, abducting and kidnapping black children and exploiting them, that's not the time for you to decide that you're going to look up and, well, we're going to pray about it. I'm not going to do nothing. We're just going to pray. We going to pray. You see, nobody else decides that they're going to hide behind some line of piety as an excuse for not fighting white supremacy. It's only black people who decide that they're going to try to see if there's some Bible verse they can use as a camouflage for their cowardice. So, family, you need to understand, these thugs with badges, this is an all-out war that's been going on here. How many blatant, stark reminders of this fact do we need? They're doing this as a means of letting you know that while they're killing black people in the streets, beating black women bloody in front of their babies, we'll take these babies who have been traumatized by seeing their mother stopped by a gang of gun-toting white supremacist thugs, beaten right in front of her, this baby bloody. Then we're going to take the kid and pose for a photograph. To them, this is their sick idea of fun. They love doing this mess. This is their sick idea of fun. This is what the thugs in blue do as a means to get their giggles. When these white supremacists are snatching black babies from their mother's arms, beating black mothers bloody in front of their babies, the black response to this white supremacist violence cannot be a shrugging of the shoulders and a, well, Jesus, maybe we gonna pray and hopefully God, Yahweh, Jehovah, hopefully. That's the wrong response. That's an inappropriate response in the face of white supremacist violence. That's the reason why I say that all black people, you need to make sure that you are also a handyman or a woman as the case may be, make sure that you're always ready to do some construction. You need to make sure you carry some power tools with you. Power tools indeed. Make sure that you don't want to have a situation where a job comes up and you don't have your hammer. Something needs to get drilled and you ain't got your drill with you. You want to make sure that you always carry the power tools with you. Always want to make sure you got power tools. Keep the Black & Decker on tap. Who's that company who makes chainsaws? Steel? Yeah, make sure you carry your steel with you. 'Cause you never know when you're driving home. You might have a tree or some other form of obstruction that gets in your way. And that way, when you carry your steel with you, your steel chainsaw, you'll have a means to make certain that there's no obstruction that's going to be a danger to you or other motorists on the road. So that's what, as black folks, make sure every black person should be a impromptu handyman, and you carry your power tools. Now, the second story that I'm going to be talking about, this was posted on the Washington Post about 2 days ago. And they were talking about black men's votes courted as some search for political home. And I do not think that it is any coincidence at all that they decided to post this. When you get to the very end of this story, which is basically reposted from the Associated Press, I think that they were sending a message to the black grassroots, particularly the B1. We'll get to that in just a moment. And this article is nothing more than a puff piece for the Democratic Party. What it does is it tries to push the lie that, well, black men are really just trying to decide which one of the candidates that they're going to go with. Why, they can't wait to vote. They're just trying to figure out who they're going to vote for. As soon as you get past the initial opening paragraph, they talk about some guy named Philip Agnew. Again, some person who you never heard of, but take his word for it. He's an activist and organizer. An activist and organizer who you never ever heard of, but they say that he gained acclaim. That means the white media handpicked him from obscurity and decided that they were going to try to make him into a black leader after he was involved in protests following the murder of Trayvon Martin in 2012. Now, you see what the white media does there? It takes some guy you never heard of, and they try to make it seem like, oh, this guy, he came to prominence. No, the white media picked him and decided this guy's going to be cherry-picked to be our stalking horse in the black community. Oh, well, he led protests after the murder of Trayvon Martin. Does he have anything to show for it? Because what happens is you see very quickly that this Agnew character, he happens to be nothing more than just a Joe Biden campaign advocate. That's all. This guy's a Joe Biden campaign operative. That's all he is. And even the Washington Post, with a story that they're reprinting from the AP, that is the Aryan propagandist, even they have to admit some of the truth, but that's just trying to set you up for the redirection that they want to do. Quote, that effort begins with keeping it real about this year's candidates. This is the article here. They're not even quoting Mr. Agnew yet, but they say that effort begins with keeping it real about this year's candidates. Trump's positions on race and Biden's decades-old controversial record on criminal justice make neither candidate particularly attractive to black men. Now, that's the Associated Press and, in turn, the Washington Post saying that. Now, finally, they get to Mr. Agnew, and he says, quote, you don't lie, you acknowledge the truth and admit that the choices before black people in the year 2020 are abysmal, said Agnew, an organizer with Black Men Build, a group created to empower black men. His group has paid to run targeted ads on TV and music streaming services such as Hulu and Spotify, supplemented by mailers and organizers on the ground. This message is geared toward black men who feel politically homeless. Okay, this guy is talking about giving black men a political home. So obviously, you would look at that and go, well, Clearly, this guy gets it. Neither the Democrats nor the Republicans have anything to offer to black people. Certainly, since he's being specific about black men, okay, great. You got somebody who understands the Democrats and the Republicans are not offering anything for black men. We have no political home with the Republican or Democratic parties, right? Wrong. Look what he says next. We are not choosing a champion. We are choosing an opponent. What? Neither person on the ballot, neither Trump nor Biden, was selected by us. They're both selected by the exact same white supremacist system. But this guy says we are not choosing a champion, we are choosing an opponent. How the hell can you choose an opponent when you had nothing to do with either one of the candidates being on the ballot? You're not choosing anything. Choice is when you make the selection, not when somebody presents it to you and says, this is all you get to choose from. Who else is on the ballot? Is Professor Truth on the ballot? Is the man on the moon on the ballot? What's this choice? See what this guy does? And then he finally decides to put aside all pretense that he's not some Democrat shill. And he finally says that he is also telling black men that, quote, a Biden presidency allows for terrain to organize under that is more favorable. Well, we've gone from this guy creates a group to empower black men, and his message is geared toward black men who feel politically homeless, to vote for the Democrats. The Democrats are the political home for black men. Man, how quickly that happened. From one paragraph to the next, we've gone from black men feel politically homeless to vote for Joe Biden. Oh, but this Agnew guy, he's not a Biden political campaign operative. The white media tells you that he's not, or at least the white media doesn't say that he is. So just because he's getting out here saying vote for Biden, he does not say what black people or even black men are going to get. He just says a Biden presidency allows for terrain to organize under that is more favorable. Organize for what? Never mind the fact that the last 4 years have been excellent for black organization because it has forced black people to separate the real from the phony. The last 4 years have been awesome for black organization because you can't fool around. You can't joke around. You can't deny the reality. Donald Trump has been a godsend for black empowerment because all the black folks on the right who were saying the garbage about, oh, the Republicans, they're not really racist, they've been shut up. And all the Democrats on the left talking about why we're the only thing protecting you from these Republicans. Black folks have been saying, look, you ain't protecting us now. You didn't protect us during the Obama years. You have to put something on the table. You got to put something on this. So what does he mean by a terrain that would be more favorable? So terrain to organize under. What it really means is we got to get y'all niggas to calm down. And Biden's going to make sure that you have someone who pretends to sympathize with you. I feel your pain. And what's going to happen is you're going to feel better about your oppression. Because you're going to have a racist in the White House who's not quite as crude as Donald Trump. That's what this really means. This has nothing to do with organizing black people. This has to do with black people going back to sleep, hitting the snooze button. This is about white supremacy having a favorable terrain to get black people disorganized, dissipate the energy. We have been doing very well. We've been having great success with Donald Trump in the White House because he has crystallized the white supremacist anti-black environment for us. People can't pretend the situation is not as ugly as we've been saying. So no, as far as I'm concerned, Joe Biden, he would simply be a smokescreen for people who want to quit the field and go back to being sleep again. They would be able to hit the snooze button. No, we don't want them hitting the snooze button. We don't want them pretending that because you got a polite, halfway polite racist in the White House when he's not wagging his finger at black people and saying, I told black men that there's nothing unmanly about using a condom. Biden should have used a condom, saved the world the malady of Hunter Biden, but I digress. But this is what this guy comes out with. When it comes to these organizations who just pop up out of nowhere, who the white media decides that they're going to run a story about, you need to be asking where the hell their money came from. I've never heard of this Philip Agnew person before. Never heard of his black men build. He can sit there and try to talk like the black media and use our vocabulary all he wants. He ain't fooling nobody. And he's running around doing ads on TV and streaming services and mailers, and he's apparently got organizers on the ground. Sounds to me like he's got some money behind him, but he can't have money from the black grassroots. No, this smells like she the people to me. Yeah, that's what it smells like. That little Amy Allison woman who's best friends with Kamala Harris. It sounds like some she the people crap where you got some white Democrats who have, or like Black Pack, I told you about them too. I forget who the woman is who they got as their front Negro for that little scam, but they got some front black person who some white people have floated some money to, and his job is to say, yeah, black man, these political parties aren't listening to you. And you're supposed to say, yeah, when you hear that. And black men build. Yeah, man, he sounds just like Jason Black, don't he? Yeah, he sounds just like Tariq and Professor Truth, don't he? He sounds just like them black media types. Oh, man, this brother, he talking some sense. And you know what? These guys out here, man, our choices are abysmal. Our choices are abysmal. Yeah. And black men, you in particular, I know you feel politically homeless. Yeah. And because of that, you need to vote for Joe Biden. Huh? Well, I know that he ain't great, but yeah, he's abysmal. But, you know, Biden, he ain't going to be as bad as Trump. We're going to have better terrain to organize under. Really? What did Joe Biden do to help black people organize during his 8 years as vice president? Better yet, what the hell did he do to help black people organize during his 30-plus years in the Senate? He led a 3.5-decade-long jihad against black people when he was in the Senate. That's what Joe Biden did. Now, all of a sudden, we're supposed to be voting for this guy for what? What's he going to do differently? A Biden presidency would have more favorable conditions for black people. Yeah, the same Joe Biden who co-sponsored the 1986 Anti-Drug Abuse Act, the law that created the 100-to-1 sentencing disparity between crack cocaine and powder cocaine. The same Joe Biden who spent his entire senatorial career palling around with white supremacists and segregationists and racists of every stripe, pattern, and spot. The same Joe Biden who wrote the '94 crime bill, aka Biden's Law. Yeah, he's going to be creating more favorable conditions for black people, right? Because, yeah, he spent his entire career in the Senate doing that. The same Joe Biden who has not said one thing about what he's going to do to punish the police. Oh, but he has said that he's going to make sure that the cops get $300 million, you know, just in case the cities start defunding the police. He's going to make sure that the feds step in to supplement those thugs with badges budgets. That way we can be treated to even more Copaganda of the police beating black women bloody and then using their traumatized babies for photo ops. Now, there's a statistic that the Washington Post, or rather the Aryan propagandists, bury in the middle of their little article, or rather puff piece for Biden is what it really is. This is what they should have led with. This stat says that black men's overall election participation has mostly been in decline since 2012, when 61% turned out to vote. Turnout fell to 54% in 2016. That's a 12% drop in only 4 years. Think about that. 12% of black men just in 4 years said to hell with this. And you know it's even worse when you try to factor in since 2008. So this 12% drop, I wouldn't say it's free fall, but you can't say that it's mostly in decline. That's just a decline period. But that's the statistic that the story should have led off with. But of course you don't want to lead off with that, because if you do, well, what you're doing is you're directly linking black men disengaging from this electoral fraud to the election of Hillary Clinton. You don't want to be pointing out that black folks are looking at the Democrats and saying, hey, you got to step up with something. So no, you're not going to be selling us on Vote for Joe by trying to claim that, this is not voting for Joe Biden. This is voting against Donald Trump. Well, I got a better idea. I'm holding out for something better. I don't have to choose the lesser of two evils. It's okay not to be backing either one of these clowns, because the truth of the matter is, no matter which one of them wins, black people lose. What's called for here is actually for harsher conditions, because what's happening is black people are getting focused. See, it's kind of difficult to be focusing on the NBA finals or focusing on what's on Netflix or video games, or the next sports game, or it's a little bit difficult to focus on games and TV shows and entertainment when you got the thugs in blue beating you bloody in front of your baby and snatching them and running off with them. It's a little bit difficult to focus on those distractions under those circumstances. Seems to me that the white supremacist being in the White House has gotten black folks focused, and that's what Mr. Agnew's problem is. Black folks are not listening to any of these bought and paid for black shills, so you can't put Simone Mammy Sanders out there. You can't put Kamala Harris out there because nobody will listen to her. She's been exposed. You can't put Karine Stud-Pierre out there. Man, you can't put any of these clowns out there. So instead, it's a matter of, let's go ahead and find some black shills, preferably black men, and we'll go ahead and tell them what to say, and we'll give them a little bit of money and claim, oh, these guys are doing big things, big things. They got some TV ads and some spots, and that's why you niggers need to vote for Joe Biden. Notice how nobody says what black people are going to get. This Agnew character, and there are a few others that the white media is going to be naming as I list them off in the piece, not one of them says a word about tangibles or punishing the police. Nothing concrete put in black people's pockets, and absolutely no punishment for the thugs in blue. Instead, it's just vote for Joe Biden, and hopefully he won't be so mean. Hey, we're organizing just fine under Trump. In fact, we're doing a great job of it. Trump's racism, his anti-black vitriol has brought clarity. The only thing Joe Biden can do is to provide an environment for black folks to go back to sleep again, or to try to find an excuse to quit the field. And don't worry, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. I know Kamala Harris has been locking black folks up, and she hasn't said she's going to do anything about these thugs in blue killing black folks. But now that they're in there, Jason Black had a broadcast last weekend. You had some black woman who called in, and what she said was the absolute height of the kind of denial that black people are engaged in. She said that she believed that Joe Biden's scared of black people, and that's the reason why she was going to vote for him, because she thinks that Joe Biden is scared of all of this black discontent, and he's so scared now he feels like he better do something to calm all these black people down. He has to do something to pacify all these black people because Joe Biden's scared of all of this black outrage in the streets. And I'm sitting here going, 12 years ago in 2008, when Barack Obama was running for president, this nation was on the verge of a revolution because of the economic crash. And people were furious. When you had guys like Hank Paulson and others talking about how there were going to be people rioting in the streets because of it, he wasn't joking. That wasn't hyperbole. This nation was on the verge of it. And what happened? They found some mulatto and pretended that they were going to address the single biggest issue facing the country, America's cardinal sin of anti-black racism. America was finally going to deal with that by putting some self-hating mulatto in the White House. What happened was people were waiting to see if this half-black president was going to do anything. They were expecting that he was going to act like one of the former slaves, and instead he acted like some immigrant trying to curry the favor of the dominant society. But the thing about it was, back then in 2008 and in 2012, you had a lot of black folks thinking, well, people were about to get turned up in the streets, and these politicians, they know they better do something. No, the pacification was not going to take place after the election. The pacification happened when you made up your mind that you would sit on your hands and wait and see what they would do. That was the pacification. And the same thing goes for Joe Biden. There will be no pacification policies put in place after he becomes president if he wins. The pacification is happening right now when you decide, oh, wait a minute, let's wait and see what Biden does. That's the pacification right there. And a lot of black folks are just too simple-minded and too politically naive and too willfully foolish to see that or admit to it. It may sound cute to them. I guess this is what passes for political sophistication to a certain segment of the black population, but it's nothing more than garden variety cowardice. It is intellectual cowardice, spiritual cowardice, psychological cowardice. You're not willing to fight white supremacy, so you're hoping that maybe, just maybe, the white supremacists are going to be intimidated by what? They've already factored in the occasional uprising and insurrection into their plans. They know that every few decades, every couple of decades, every 20 or so years, when that youthful generation comes to maturity, they're going to see the situation that they're in and the kettle's going to blow. They already have factored that in. They factor that into the equation. In the 1940s, in the 1960s, in the 1980s, flares up in the 1990s, and whatever you want to call this. So no, Jeff Bezos' Washington Post and whatever black sock puppets they put out there, they're not going to be sweet-talking us into voting for Joe Biden. We were serious when we said there's going to be tangibles on the table. Tangibles and punishment for the police. Those are just the beginning of our demands. You're not going to be pulling some Jedi mind trick on us. That's not going to work. So you can clear out your Democrat shills and your Republican shills while you're at it. You're not calling the tune. We're not going to be politically monogamous to either party. The only thing that we're monogamous to are our interests. The only thing that a Democrat or a Republican can do for a black voter is to point us to the tangibles that you've acquired and put in front of us. That's the only thing you can do for us. Whomever takes a public, open, frequently declared pledge to our tangibles and to punish the enforcement arm of white supremacy, that's who we support. You have to publicly say, these are the tangibles that black people, specifically the black people who came out of slavery in America, are going to get. This is not about black immigrants from the Caribbean or from Africa. This ain't about them at all. This is not about immigrants because that becomes a trick bag. This ain't about minorities or people of color. This is specifically for the people who built this country, the people whose ancestry and bloodline goes back to the killing fields of the American South. Now, if you're talking about that, then we got something to talk about. We have the foundation for a conversation. But you should not expect any promises for a vote until I've seen promises for our tangibles. Whomever steps up and makes it clear we are serious about tangibles for black people, starting with but not limited to reparations. Reparations is just the tip of the iceberg. Even if slavery had never happened, by virtue of the fact that we are citizens of this country, we are supposed to be having a share of the nation's bounty allocated to us. That's what they do for all these immigrants. That's what they do for all these Asians. That's what they do for all these Hispanics. They make sure, hey, we're going to divvy up the pie and make sure you get a slice. Why? Well, you're citizens here. That's what citizenship's about. That's the point of being part of a society. Being part of a society is, hey, I'm going to get a share of the wealth. Now, we can either handle this through physical means, or we can go ahead and have an orderly transition of resources, one or the other. But part of a society is you're supposed to be able to get your piece of the rock. And that being the case, whichever of the parties makes it very clear that they finally got their heads on straight, and that they've discovered religion, and they're going to start doing what they should have been doing for 500 years and making sure that the people who founded this country and built this country are able to reap the fruits of our labors and our ancestors' labors that everybody else has been eating off of except for us. When that happens, that's who we're going with. Because elections are transactional. And I've been hearing that phrase transactional being given a bad rap. Rahm Emanuel said, we don't want this to be a transactional election. You had, what's his name, David Friedman or Thomas Friedman, whoever that clown is who writes for the New York Times. He was saying the same thing about a Trump re-election. Well, we really really don't want a transactional election, you know. Yeah, that lets you know that there's a program at work here. There are some talking points that have gone out. People have this idea that when you vote, you're supposed to get something. Well, we don't want them to have that idea they're supposed to get something. They're starting to make demands now, especially these black folks. We need to get them off of that. They need to understand that, well, when you vote, you're voting because there's some meanie over here who said some stuff that you wouldn't like, and you're not supposed to be actually demanding anything for your vote. You're supposed to just be saying, I'll settle for getting the mean guy who says the mean stuff out of office. Oh, no, I don't need to have any tangibles. I don't need anything. Just that mean guy over there. He's so mean. And what's happening is you got people showing political maturity, which is neither one of these parties are trying to operate in our interests. And that being the case, as I've told you, when people get to the point where they look and say the ballot box doesn't work, the next thing you know, that only leaves taken to the streets. And there ain't going to be no elections taking place in the streets. This is about getting people, especially black people, back onto the treadmill because we've been the ones who have been leading the charge in regards to seeking answers to our political and economic needs outside of the ballot box. If they can get us back on board, everybody else is going to get on board as well because everybody else's needs are far, far less than ours. Because everybody else has had their needs tended to. We have been the ones who have been systematically and deliberately neglected, deprived, left out, and shut out. Everybody else, they'll go ahead and stop pretending to be discontent when they see black folks simmer down. And that's what this is all about, getting black folks to knock it off with all the agitating, starting with black men. So the white media is coming in with the propaganda saying, well, you know, black people, black men have got some concerns, but you know what? They also believe that one of the two major parties is going to be the answer, which is not what we said at all. We said that black empowerment's the answer. This is not about us following whatever Joe Biden or Donald Trump or the Democrats or the Republicans or whatever other political paid whore comes down the pike next. This is not about us following them. This is about them following us. Because for the longest time, the tail's been wagging the dog. And it's way past time that the dog wagged the tail. And the tail happens to be these politicians. It's time for them to follow orders. Not for them to tell us, get behind our policy. No, we tell you what the policy is going to be. And they see that and they're trying to stop that. It is dangerous when you have the people who are doing the voting saying, now here's what the policy is going to be. Now you and I call that democracy. They call that a threat to white supremacy. And they're right. The Washington Post, by way of the Associated Press, or the Aryan propagandists I like to call them, they posted in their story that Donald Trump in 2016 asked black Americans, what the hell do you have to lose? The answer was everything, said some guy, you know, one of their typical black shills who apparently is a director of strategic communications for the Biden campaign. So the white media is making it very clear. Yeah, we see what you online troublemakers are saying. And yeah, you made it where it's pretty obvious that black men are leading the charge for black empowerment and that black women are following black men's lead. Well, we're going to try to use our white media monopoly to sandblast and just carpet bomb you with the idea that, oh yeah, when it comes time to talk about black men saying, hey, what about all of this gender warring, trying to split the black men from the black women? We're going to see if we can get some black men out there who are going to say, yeah, black men have got these unique concerns. No, black people have unique concerns. But they're going to make sure that it's individuals who are already sock puppets and going to say what the white media wants them to say and not to veer from the line that they've already laid out. So one of Joe Biden's communications flunkies says, Trump asked black Americans, what the hell do you have to lose? The answer was everything. And then immediately after that, this Biden sock puppet says, Trump has shown us who he is, and the American people, along with black men, won't fall for more empty promises. Well, hell, everything this guy just said was completely wrong to some degree or another. First of all, Trump didn't show people who he is. It's been readily obvious who he is. It's not as if people were fooled. Everybody knew what they were getting in 2016. Anybody who supported him knew what they were getting. But secondly, you notice just like Kamala Harris, Just like Joe Biden, when it comes time to talk about black folks, this individual who apparently wants to make it seem as if he's speaking for black folks, Biden's sock puppet here, says the American people along with black men. So there you go. Black men are an afterthought to someone who is allegedly a black man. And yet when it comes time to talk about black people's interests, he says the American people, just like Kamala Harris, just like Joe Biden, just like the rest of the Democratic Party. Well, you know, this is about the American people, you see. Black people don't have any concerns that are not everybody else's concerns. They make it very clear. Black people, especially black men, are an afterthought. And as for falling for more empty promises, neither one of the parties have given any promises that they intend to fulfill. None of them have kept any promises because they haven't made any promises. Donald Trump didn't make any promises to the black community. All he said was, "What the hell do you have to lose?" That's not a promise. That's not a pledge. That's not a policy. So what's this about won't fall for more empty promises? Donald Trump didn't promise anything, and neither is Joe Biden. Well, Joe Biden did promise $300 million for the police. That he did promise. Now, the Washington Post decided to gloss that over. In the next paragraph, putting, but Biden isn't particularly popular among black men. That's an understatement. Largely because of his role in passage of the Violent Crime Control and Law Enforcement Act of 1994, otherwise known as Biden's Law. Federal legislation that lengthened sentences for violent crimes, helped fill prisons, and flooded black communities with police officers. Harris's tenure as a top prosecutor in California includes the disproportionate incarceration of black men for drug offenses. Now that ought to be put with any and all reporting regarding Joe Biden, especially if they mention the black community. If you bring up the black community at all, first thing you should be mentioning is Joe Biden and Biden's Law, the 94 crime bill, Kamala Harris using the laws that Joe Biden helped to put on the books and incentivize the states to copycat for $13 billion, because that was in the crime bill. $13 billion to the states if you change your laws so that they are the same and that they mirror the federal laws that Joe Biden had written, and Kamala Harris used those laws put in place. In fact, it was around the time that the 94 crime bill was being passed that Kamala Harris became a prosecutor in the first place. In Alameda County in the mid-90s, that's when she first became a prosecutor. And as soon as those laws got passed, she started using them in Alameda County, then when she became San Francisco DA, and continued when she became California Attorney General. And also making sure no cops got punished. So these two were working hand in hand before they even became colleagues or running mates in Washington. But what needs to be remembered is, when it comes time to talk to the black community, you need to be doing more than just saying, "Oh, but criminal justice and all you niggers in prison." No, we got concerns way the hell beyond just the prison industrial complex, or rather the black incarceration complex, because that's what it really is. We got concerns beyond that. You can tell that the white media feels forced now that they have to at least admit to that. As the pressure grows, they're saying a whole lot of stuff that they previously have not had to say. Quote, but advocates point out black men of voting age care about many issues beyond criminal justice and economic prosperity. Well, actually, you put economic prosperity out there, and that's the most important thing. Healthcare, education, and housing are also on the list. Healthcare, education, and housing fall under economic prosperity. You got enough money, you can set up your own clinics and hospitals. You got enough money, you can educate your children, set up schools for them, or homeschool yourself. You got enough money, you can buy and build your own housing. So to sit there and say healthcare, education, and housing, that's redundant. All of that falls under economic prosperity because you can't have healthcare, education, or housing without economic prosperity. So this is a matter of they're trying to figure out how do they wedge in issues that would make it where black folks would say, oh, yeah, things other than economic prosperity. Because healthcare, when they talk about healthcare, what do they talk about? They talk about abortion. That seems to be the only healthcare that the white media wants to tell black people to be concerned about. When it comes to education, well, you need to be concerned about teaching about LGBT history. That's the only education that the white media thinks that black people ought to concern themselves with. And when it comes to housing, it's going to be a question of, well, we need some low-income housing that black people can rent. Because that's the only housing discussion that the white media cares about. Next, the Washington Post goes on to quote someone named Wes Bellamy. He's co-chair of something called Our Black Party, which apparently is some sort of political platform, some sort of political group. And what he says, and this is the part that I want to get to, this guy, Wes Bellamy, I've never heard of him, and I'm already skeptical and suspicious because this Bellamy person, he's a chairman of the political science department at Virginia State University. When you got these black folks who work for these political parties, or they're working for some university, which is basically half a step removed from one of these think tanks, when you have something like that going on, and the white media sitting here trying to make them a thing and saying, oh, we're going to talk to this guy, we're going to push this, this is when you should start to get concerned. Now, what he says is, we know that there are a lot of black folks, and black men in particular, who feel politically homeless. Well, first of all, if you're going to be calling yourself talking about black men and you put black men second, you're already undermining your own statement. And second of all, you could have just said black folks, because as black men are doing the speaking out on this, black women are saying, hey, finally someone's saying it. Black men have been speaking with a voice loud enough to be heard, so you could have just said black folks and left it at that. Black folks as a group feel politically homeless. But the thing is, as black men, we are the leaders of our community, whether we have as much power as we ought to have or not, whether we have as many resources as we ought to or not, we are still the leaders of our community. And that's the reason why you hear us speaking the loudest, because we are the leaders of our community. Now, this Wes Bellamy guy goes on to say, we want to endorse and support candidates, and even if we get to the point of getting ballot status later on, we want to make sure we are running folks who put black first. Now, a lot of you, your hearts go pitter-pat when you hear something like that. Oh, look, you got this guy quoted in the Washington Post, and they end their article by having this guy say, we're running folks who put black first. They use that phrase for a reason. And they put it at the end of their article for a reason. They ended it like that deliberately. They wanted for that to be seen, and I think they wanted for us to see that. But they didn't mention our phrase and put it at the end of one of their articles in order to do us any favors. Well, that's all well and good. Just keep in mind the white media has been on a jihad to prop up individuals. They've been doing this for years, trying to appropriate our language, our verbiage, our lingo, our talking points for the sake of subverting what it is that we do and say. While I am not going to wholesale condemn Mr. Wes Bellamy, who serves as chairman of the political science department at Virginia State University, what I will say is this is not someone who we know. We do not know this man. And I've been telling you for the longest time, and I will reiterate, we're not just following people, okay? We're following the code. And when it comes to individuals who call themselves trying to use our verbiage and talk like us, you better start checking people's paperwork, family. You're supposed to be checking people's paperwork. You got people who pop up out of nowhere, and the white media's sitting here trying to promote them. If the fact that the white media is not attacking this person, that's right there, that's already 2 red flags. The fact that this person is running around using our verbiage and our language, we want candidates who put black first, and the white media is not casting aspersions on this person. Since when has the white media ever been deciding to give ink to some black person saying black first without attacking them, without undermining them, without trying to say something greasy about them? They're not attacking this Wes Bellamy character. What does that tell you? What that tells me is what it's always told me. Anytime you got some black person who the white media puts on or gives some attention to, gives them some column space, puts them on for a segment and does not attack them, does not undermine them, does not try to find a way to say, well, this guy, you say some irresponsible stuff. You know, we got to scandalize you and dirty you up a little bit. When the white media doesn't try to dirty them up, that's because they want this person and what they're saying out there. This is the reason why you had Big Bird, who and his little do-nothing organization N Cobra, and I'm convinced the N stands for nothing, because that's what they've done. As soon as the black grassroots start banging the drum and the momentum had built to the point that the white media could no longer ignore it. They couldn't afford to ignore it anymore because it was obvious that this was going to be a factor in the presidential election. When they saw that, they were like, we got to get one of our trusted bootlick Negroes out here. So we're going to get Big Bird wearing his mother's tablecloth. We're going to have him on Joy Jackass Reed's show. And she's going to tell him, along with Sheila Jackson Lee, who is amening his every ignorant word, immigrant Sheila Jackson Lee, the child of immigrants. We're going to have them saying everything the white media wants them to say. Well, we are the only nationally longest standing reparation. In other words, we are trusted by white power. White power. We are trusted by more white politicians. We're part of the establishment. Yeah, whenever you see the white media put some black person in front of the camera, and they're not trying to tear this black person down, they're not trying to attack this black person, they're not trying to dirty him up, that lets you know this black person is trusted by the white media, trusted by the powers that be. So while I do think it's cute that this Mr. Bellamy, who happens to be chairman of the political science department at Virginia State University, he's a white university employee, while it's nice that he decides that he's going to use the phrase black first, at the end of the day, I do not know this man. You don't know him either. He has no track record with us, so throwing around our words and our phrases, as far as I'm concerned, I consider him no different than any person who works for Biden, Trump, or any other political party that has nothing to do with us. Sorry, but you got to do it. If you're going to be thinking that you're going to get the good seal of approval from the black grassroots, you're going to have to do better than kicking around a little bit of our lingo. You're going to have to come a lot harder than that. And your track record and your paperwork is going to have to be a lot stronger than, well, this guy works for Virginia State University. So family, you need to be on maximum alert. When the police call themselves using black babies for their photo ops, that is not okay. That is not some victimless crime. And you cannot afford to be having them do that because other people around the world, they understand. They don't allow. You would never have a situation where you got a bunch of Arabs sitting on their hands while the Israelis decide to use Palestinian babies for their photo ops. They would never allow that. Your children are your future. And when you allow your oppressors to molest and to exploit and abuse your babies and your future with impunity, that is the rape of a people is what that is. Allowing the babies to be abused with impunity and you're kind of sitting here pretending like you're helpless in the face of this aggression, that is the rape of a people taking place. And you better take this situation seriously. You have card-carrying white supremacists who are murdering black people in the streets, beating black mothers in front of their babies, and then think it's funny to take these children and use them for a photo op. To them, that's a joke. They have a good laugh about that and go, hey, they were beating the mother. They were beating her bloody right there in front of her kid. Man, the more vile, the better. The more sick, the better. The more twisted, the better. For them, that's the fun for them. This is their sick idea of fun, these white supremacists with badges. Where is the line? I'm not talking about the line for the thugs with badges. They've already shown that there is no line for them. There is no low that they will not stoop to. There is nothing that they would do against a black person that would be considered beyond the pale, something that would be too wrong, too reprehensible, too vile even for them. As far as they're concerned, the sicker, the grosser, the better. My question is, where's the line for black people? At what point do black people look and say, these white supremacists have gone too damn far? Where's the line at? Does the line come when they decide that they're going to beat a black baby's mother bloody right in front of that black baby? Is that the line? Has the line finally been crossed? At what point do black people feel that these white supremacist thugs with badges have gone too far? Well, I'm telling you that you can't afford to be feigning helplessness in the face of this white supremacist anti-black aggression and violence. A people who decide to sit on their hands and do nothing while their children, their future, is being violated and exploited right in front of them, well, that's a people who don't have a future.